Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is Transfers Live. There's just over 24 hours left of the transfer window, so we'll be getting into all of that. We've also got the latest updates on Jose Mourinho, Marcus Rashford, what is going on there. Will they be reunited at Manchester United? Who knows? But first of all, you're not Jay. We're joined by Abdul today. How are you doing, Abdul?
I'm all right. Is that a bad thing?
No, it's a very good thing.
That's good.
It can be good or it can be bad, it can be anything. But I think based on today's news and what we're going to be chatting about, I think it's actually a very good thing. Now, the other thing worth mentioning is some of the puns last week were the worst we've ever had. So when we get a new story up, there's a pun at the top, written by the producers. The last week's was the worst we've ever seen. Embarrassing, diabolical actually. So they've got a lot of redeeming to do. We'll get into the comments as well. People saying hello. Someone said hello, Smaller J. That's it. You know, as far as they're concerned, you fill those shoes exactly.
Smaller J.
You only slightly shorter than him actually. I feel like I'm looking roughly the same height. Should we get into these stories then? Yeah. Let's start with this. Jose Mourinho. Now, here we go. Look at that. They've played it safe. No way, Jose. That's not bad, is it?
It's not bad.
It's not bad?
Yeah.
What are you rating that?
I only found out about this pun thing like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I quite like it.
What do you make of this one though? That's not bad. This is very Daily Mirror, innit?
Yeah.
It's pretty safe. It works. Let's get into it.
I feel like this could have worked in the 90s.
Yeah.
And now. It's just a...
Taylor's all the time.
Consistent.
Yeah, it's absolutely consistent.
Yeah.
Let's get into this then. Unlike Jose Mourinho, this is consistent. Jose Mourinho is keen on making what would be a sensational, if somewhat unlikely, return to Man United. We'll be the judge of that. Sources close to the Portuguese manager, who was sacked by Roma earlier this month, say he feels he has unfinished business after leaving Old Trafford in December 2018 and has made it his mission to take charge again should the opportunity arise at some point in the future. Mourinho also is said to be keen to work with the new regime at United. His ambition is to return to United, a friend explained. He feels like he has unfinished business there after how it ended last time, and he has made it his mission to go back. Firstly, without commenting on whether you think this is true, let's assume he wants to come back to United. Do you think there's any way where he could ever be the manager of Manchester United again?
No.
Just
I genuinely don't see it ever happening.
Because of how it ended last time? Because
of
his
really.
Trajectory? Or
I think
what is
more
it?
about where he's at right now and
Right.
where if Manchester United are going a certain direction, then as we expect him to genuinely being a modern side that's going to compete, then the people at the top, whether I know a lot of people will love Jose Mourinho. I loved genuinely growing up watching.
Annoying thing in my life, this internet, and it will get fixed, and it will get fixed very shortly. But let's get back into this. You were saying Jose Mourinho, no way he's coming back to United. United want to be a modern, forward-thinking football side. You respected what he did when he was younger, when you were younger, but he's not the guy to take United into the next sort of decade of our sort of existence.
And to be fair, even if I still have that fanboyish side to me with Jose Mourinho, I would have loved, even if you ask me now, I've still got that side of me that says, oh, Jose Mourinho on the sidelines at Old Trafford, with his character and, the vibe that he brings in football, winning something at Manchester United is almost like sort of a nice thing to have. Yeah. But ultimately, I'm putting myself in Manchester United's position in the direction that they're going, and I don't see it as a possibility, and it doesn't really make any sense. So.
No. I don't know what would have to happen for us to sign. The only thing I would say about the idea of Jose coming back is, you look around Europe, I know there are names, I'm not saying there's no names, but
no one's staring you in the face.
Who is the obvious? Let's say United finished 10th this season, which isn't impossible. We're 9th now. We finished 10th, we don't win the FA Cup. Most people would say you have to go if you're United manager. I'm not saying he will, but I think if he finishes 10th, he would get sacked.
Of course.
Who do you think would come in next season? Based on, we've got 5 months to the end of the season, something mad could happen, but assuming the lay of the land is similar to what it is now, who would you have, or who do you think would be the best option for next season?
It's quite interesting because, again, when we look at what I want as a Manchester United fan from the point of view that I watch football, is I do want a modern thinking manager who understands the modern game and how to operate in the modern game. And when you look at Erik ten Hag, I almost seen him as that, and it's not really worked out. But I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that, forget the injuries this season, Erik ten Hag's main issue for me has been him not sticking to his principles as a manager.
Yeah.
Even when you look at people genuinely, like when I'm discussing it with my mates or I'm discussing it with like a lot of United fans, they do hate the comparing it to Tottenham this season because it is a different pressure at Manchester United. There is no disputing that. But when I'm watching Højbjerg and Oliver Skip come into that Tottenham midfield, two players, by the way, who were basically like done in the summer. Like they were meant to be some discardable players.
Maybe getting Højbjerg, weren't they?
On loan, they didn't want him anymore. And you look at them and it's like, when I'm watching Spurs, the way the team functions is it makes it so easy for no matter who the player is. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I watch us and I get a lot of our players have certain limitations, but a lot of our players tend to just feel trapped on the pitch and there isn't enough solutions. Yes, they've got to find those solutions themselves when they get the ball, but in terms of the spaces that were received, the pressure is just not the same as when you watch like a team like Spurs. Like, no matter who it is, whether it's Bissouma, Pape Sarr, James Maddison, that full-strength team, or Benton Cott, whether it's that or Oliver Skip and Højbjerg. And when it goes down to the players and why I'm focusing on Spurs, because I'm watching them the other night against City, and the setup was perfect to transition and hit City, and there was a lot of spaces in behind, and every time they failed that passing behind because of the quality. But what the manager had to do was put those players in those positions, and then after that it's on the players.
So who can do that at United then? Because if Ten Hag's not doing it, who do you
this
think
is where
can
I was
come in
going with it.
and do
I
it?
think there's a couple young managers that you could look at, potentially like Ruben Amorim at if that's how you pronounce it, at Sporting. I won't say I've watched a lot of Sporting, but I have watched a couple of games, especially more so last season, and I felt his football, it feels compact, it feels like it's got a structure to it. I know that they play more of a back three, so how could that work out with Manchester United and the players we've got? If you ask me, I would go for Inzaghi, but I don't see him leaving Inter. The reason I'd say that, because I think, yes, he does play a back three, and people usually look at that and say they're quite worried because of the whole Conte thing and potentially sitting deep and stuff like that. But in fact, when you watch Inter Milan, they play some of the best football for me in Europe right now. They open teams up. They're solid defensively. I think even when you look at that Champions League final against Manchester City, the amount of times that they were the better team, the amount of times that they cut right through the centre of City. And it's like, they don't completely control games, yes, but they've still got that element of like the ball gets popped around and then they're quickly out of pressure, quickly putting themselves on the front foot. And I feel like that, when you look at profiles like of that Inter Milan team, there is a lot of players that I look at this Manchester United team, and you look at Çalhanoğlu, where it's like playing Bruno's role, DiMarco, could Luke Shaw play that out wide on the wing back side of things? I mean, Diogo Dalot could fit potentially someone like Inzaghi coming in and giving him more, maybe even freedom and improving his game going forward as well on the right hand side. Inzaghi for me, from the football I've seen, is probably my personal favourite, but I don't see it as a possibility. That being said, I don't think even he stares you in the face and saying that is the guy I want. When we went and got Erik ten Hag, I think a lot of Manchester United fans thought, and we thought that on here, and I came in here and I did I remember doing like a whole tactical analysis piece with you about like how is Erik ten Hag going to play his football and so on and so forth, and we thought this is it. Genuinely thought this is it.
So you said before about him abandoning his principles, or whether he abandoned them, whether he was forced to abandon them, whether it was a combination of the internal pressures, because he's mentioned in interviews before about wanting, he sort of said, I can't do what I did at Ajax. And for me, I couldn't tell whether he meant because I don't have the players, because the pressure is different, because United wouldn't accept me playing the same way. I don't know exactly why it is. But do you think a new manager would feel those same pressures and those same things that Ten Hag felt? So he's gone from X manager at Ajax to Y manager at United. Surely any other manager that comes in is going to feel a pressure of, playing the United way, whatever that is. For me, it's, trying to score goals and win football matches. But do you think that he's alone in this problem, Ten Hag? Or do you think he's going to go to his next job, whether that's a Juve or a PSG or whatever it is, and start winning again, because United's too sort of claustrophobic and impossible to win in?
I'll give a bit of an example in terms of what happened in the summer as to what doesn't make sense for me in terms of what he's doing, and it sort of links to the pressure at Man United, because Scott McTominay and Fred, it was almost an option of selling one of them, and we went ahead and sold Fred. Now, I don't know whether that was a decision. I know that a lot of people behind the scenes at Old Trafford, people above even Erik ten Hag, have this thing around Scott McTominay, and I do get it. Obviously he's come through the academy, has a certain personality, you can't knock him for certain things. But ultimately, the football we have played this season screams in your face, Fred.
Yeah.
You've played essentially almost a high 8 or a number 10, someone who's high up the pitch that you need for turnover in that position. You need someone who's going to be aggressive, who can turn the ball over, and who's going to allow the team to quickly counter-press and be a lot stronger in them situations. You've gone and played Scott McTominay as essentially number 10 throughout the whole season. He's static, doesn't counter-press well. Now, Mason Mount's been out injured. Yes, of course, that's a factor. But a lot of the time, you've shifted Bruno out the way as well. So this is where it's like, how much of this is the club? Like, those little decisions can impact the season completely.
By the sound of it, Ten Hag, like you said, was willing to let one or either of them go. Do you think in his head he's thinking, like he's just sort of mentioned there, it don't really matter which one I let go because they're not even going to be playing anyway. It's going to be Mount. And ideally, I might even get someone else as well. I might, Amrabat, or that was maybe Højbjerg at one point. Obviously, in his head, ideally, that's probably De Jong. Do you think he thought, whichever one we can sell, get rid of him, because the other one isn't going to play regardless? And unfortunately, we've probably sold the wrong one. And, Amrabat's been slightly underwhelming, and, he's now away at the AFCON, or has been. Mount's been injured almost all season. Casemiro's been injured for the last 3 months. Like, do you think that's played into it as well, a bit of bad luck? I
think for sure, yeah. Definitely, I think the way he would have probably viewed it is that. Yeah. But who? So this is the issue, like at Manchester United, because when you look at it, we're always going to be short in midfield. Like, I think Donny was never going to play. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, Donny's clearly never going to come into this team. So he's out the window. All right. So then you eventually get Amrabat in. By that time, we've sold Fred to get Amrabat in, essentially, on that weird loan that we've got him on. So it just doesn't make any sense for me, because ultimately you're always going to use that player. Yes, he might have been lower down the pecking order, but you have to look at it. What kind of football are you trying to play? So why is this player here over this player? Why is this the decision that you made? And some of that, you think, is because of people's adoration of Scott McTominay within the club? I genuinely think that has a hint of it. Now, I have been on Ten Hag from day one this season because of the football we played in this midfield. Like, we genuinely look like we're playing a 1-1-1 formation in that midfield. And I really seen it, if you remember the Bayern Munich game. Yeah, it was I think I came in... What, the away game? The away game. Yeah. Casemiro is ending up in the opposition's box. Yeah. And all I'm seeing, it's absolute chaos. Like, it doesn't make any sense for me. Bruno's in our box, winning the ball. Then in the other second, he's there. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what is this? Like, it was shape, up, down. Like, where's the shape? No one's holding it together. And this is what I don't understand. So I get Amrabat's not done amazingly well, but then you go to Galatasaray away. For me, had a good first half. I thought kept our shape well. You want to control the end of that game. You keep Scott McTominay on. You take him off. Yeah. You bring Kobe on. He's not even given a chance to go, right, play Amrabat as the pure holder. Play Kobe as someone who can potentially escape pressure in midfield. And, isn't going to like always take his man on, but we know that he is very smart at those little moves. And then, progress the team going forward. And I felt like in midfield, he's been very much hell-bent on playing a set midfield where Casemiro and McTominay seem way too involved going further up the pitch, leaving a lot of space, which Bruno's got to deal with. Bruno's not playing closer to Marcus Rashford and Højlund, which is hurting both of their games. Well, and Garnacho's. We're going to move on to Rashford in a second. Doesn't make any sense.
Do you think, so obviously Jose not coming back, but for me, what you've said there, I agree with a lot of that. And I do think that some of it is almost, not all of it, obviously a lot of it is the manager's decision, but the fact that some of it is out of the manager's hands and the squad and how the squad is made, that's where the new leadership, that's where the new sporting director, the new CEO, these new people need to come in and actually go, here's how the team is going to be. You can pick some of the items within that team, but we want a team that can do this, this and this, and then hopefully the manager sort of fits that as well. Let's move on to the next one, because it's almost a continuation. Marcus Rashford, what we got here. PSG itching to get Rash. That's not bad. It's Rash, itch. That's not bad, that. That's actually all right, that one. All right. Who does these, by the way? Ethan and Ollie in sort of unison. Although, what I've noticed is, because these ones have been quite good so far this week, they're sort of high-fiving and they're in it together. Last week, when they weren't so good, Ollie was pointing in Ethan's face going, he made this one. He did it, not me. No accountability. What? Itching to get Rash, that's pretty good, actually. Yeah, Ross Murphy, I like that one. Yeah, Navoma says, that's decent, that one. Yeah, not everyone's loving it actually, but most people are. That's really good. Let's get into this then. Paris Saint-Germain are considering rekindling their interest in Marcus Rashford. United currently have no plans to sell Rashford despite indiscipline, while sources close to the player are adamant he's not looking elsewhere. The League One champions failed in an attempt to lure the 26-year-old to the French capital last summer before Rashford signed a lucrative new deal. But while they are not making a purchase the top of their agenda, according to club sources, another based in the city insist that PSG are tempted to return with a fresh offer at the end of the season. We were chatting a little bit before we went live, mentioning, obviously, speaking about Rashford, it's probably the biggest story at United at the minute. Mm-hmm. You were saying you've got some interesting sort of angles and information on this, haven't you?
So I think one of the things that people probably don't have much knowledge about, which, like, I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, I've heard this and I've been sat at the club and I've been speaking to people, but it's the FFP side of things and how much it's impacted by the homegrown player aspect, and that's where Marcus Rashford's involved, Mason Greenwood, Scott McTominay.
Yeah. And
I think Manchester United could be in trouble from an FFP side of things if they don't sell big in terms of a homegrown talent. And
that's because, obviously, a homegrown talent, it's all profit.
Yeah.
Whereas if you sell someone that you bought for 40 million and you sell them for 50 million, on the books, that's only 10 million. Whereas Rashford, if you get selling for 140 million, that's 140 million pure clean profit because he's an academy player.
From my pure understanding of it, like, which I've got a very basic level understanding of FFP, is that it's that obviously you get the pure profit, which who is your most valuable asset in this team? In that sense, it's Marcus Rashford. The other thing that we're seeing with Marcus Rashford now, obviously, we're not going to bore you with, because there's papers you can go read and other videos and other live streams and stuff that just want to keep talking about the same story. So we're not going to bore you with whatever's been discussed. I guess you guys have already been speaking about it,
of course,
what he's done wrong, blah, 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 blah. What we're talking about is moving forward, what happens with him.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, yes, all the fans, rightly so, are drilling in for certain things, but what people don't tend to know is there's certain people at Old Trafford that have had certain concerns. People have genuinely briefed the papers from inside Old Trafford. So there's been that aspect as well, which I don't want to go too much into where there is a darker side to it. I think that's making things a bit sour behind the scenes. So
I know obviously you know only say as much as you want to say.
Yeah.
As in, you mean that there are some people at Old Trafford who, when you say there are concerns about him and his attitude, or about people trying to get rid of him, or what do you reckon?
There's concerns like that. I wouldn't say like in terms of like cleanly saying they're trying to get rid of him, but more there is definitely people that have spoken to papers without the knowledge of his camp or the people around him. So it's one of those things where it is very sour in and around Carrington. There are things like that going on, and that's why when you look at the papers that have gone out the last 2 nights, there's so much information flying in and things like that, where papers are holding certain things back and then releasing them as this has come out.
Yeah.
So there is that aspect. Does everyone in and around have a liking to him? There is that. So again, without going too much into it, I think with him, the FFP side of thing, just as it is with Scott McTominay, Mason Greenwood, could be a big impact. Something that's not genuinely been highlighted, I think, enough.
Yeah. Because if you look at it from that perspective, if you think of like any sale that United make having to sort of contrast to their purchase price, Rashford is probably by 100 million the most profit United could make on a player, isn't it, in terms of FFP? So if they were desperate, or they really thought we need a jolt in the transfer market, I'd not thought about it like this really. He is far and away the best thing for them to sell from an asset perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting that. Hopefully not though. I mean, obviously, the main question is the point
is don't be surprised if you see something like that, and that's why also don't be surprised if he starts tomorrow, which a lot of people would have expected him to start on the bench tomorrow. Don't be shocked if he does start, because
I think
they almost need him to get going if that's ultimately a decision that Manchester United are going to reach and say, if they sell Sancho and Anthony, how much is that going to impact the FFP really? If they sell Marcus Rashford, that is going to have a genuine impact on that. So again, I feel like this is an angle, and the reason, like, obviously when I'm on the show, or like when we discuss these things, we're trying to bring a different angle to saying the same boring things. And no one sat here saying, yeah, I know this, but it is genuinely a concern in and around the whole transfer thing for the summer. That FFP is definitely a concern, and I think it's not been highlighted enough. A lot of people have dumbed it down, saying, yeah, they'll sell Scott McTominay, they sell Maguire, they sell this guy. There was a lot of that last summer. None of those guys got sold. It is not easy to shift players on big contracts. Now, Marcus Rashford can go to PSG and probably get a similar contract as to the one that he's got.
One of the few places where he could, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and one of a few players at Manchester United that could potentially do that. So, yeah, that's just one to keep an eye out. And again, the Mason Greenwood situation actually links into that, the homegrown aspect, and why Manchester United could be looking to sell him, but who's out there that's going to sort of deal with that situation and bring him in. So
there's a few people in the comments saying who would pay 100 million for him, he's not worth 100 million. If you score 30 goals for a Premier League side, and it will have been 3 of the last 5 years, score over 20 goals for Premier League sides, you are worth minimum 70 million.
I'll be honest, this is the problem, I think, with a lot of people. So it's like, you want him gone, we get that, with a lot of fans, and they have this very aggressive thinking, and obviously they've been waiting for a certain moment or whatever it is, and no one wants to have a balanced view. I felt like the way Gary Neville looked at it the other day, I don't know if you've seen the clip of him discussing the whole Marcus Rashford situation. If you haven't, then go check it out. I felt it was very balanced, and I think with his situation it's never balanced. It's like extremes
people
everywhere.
Hate him, and there are a lot of people who have hated him for a long time.
So it's just waiting. So that's why you see certain pages, once it comes out, it's just like bang, 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 bang. Like Neil Custis, back to back tweets. Then you've got Richard, whatever his name is as well, and the Sun just writing like 3 or 4 articles within 2 days. So my point of view, respond to those fans, is just, if you think that he should be gone, then why are you so bothered about, oh, is he really worth 100 mil? Are we going to really... Mate, if PSG have genuine... Like, you had what's his name? The guy at PSG who come out last year around the World Cup and spoke about Marcus Rashford and said, if there's an opportunity to bring him in, we would absolutely explore it. It almost had to have him to come out for people to say, the links are real.
Also, Wesley Fofana went for 80 million quid. An injury-prone 22-year-old centre-back who had done next to fuck all at Leicester.
We signed Harry Maguire for nearly 90 million.
Yeah, like, come on.
We signed Anthony for 100 million euros. You're telling me...
I mean, we shouldn't even have to stand here and plump up his value. I don't even want him to leave. But if he does, it's 100 minimum.
This is my point. Like, genuinely, have whatever you want opinion of him, but just don't drive yourself into some delusional thinking, because... A player that has a certain level of contributions, that if a club looks at it and says, okay, you can blame him for a million things, but then you say, all right, if there's a set environment that he's in, which Manchester United have not had, and that's why there's always a scapegoat. It's always been Paul Pogba, now Bruno Fernandes sneaking into that. Now, obviously, Marcus Rashford. As much as a lot of those players have had them faults, there's a reason why. Angel Di Maria hasn't done well. Can you explain to me why? Alexis Sanchez has come here, hasn't done well. Anthony Martial has not been able to fulfill his potential. Can people start discussing why players can't fulfill their potential at Manchester United as a Manchester United problem, as well as it being the problem of the player? And I think that's the problem with Manchester United fans. I have sat here consistently saying this, by the way, for the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, where it was Devils, where I was sat with Steve doing his show, when I've been on here. This has nothing to do with just Marcus Rashford. This is the point of view that I have with Manchester United in general. You got to look at Bruno Fernandes. He's a player that really wears his heart on his sleeve. Can be frustrating at times, yes, but really wants to win. And at times, you look at him, he's almost as if he's drained. And this is what ends up happening at Manchester United. The environment isn't there. So my point of view is, if you're looking at it as a top European club, and you say, okay, this guy's had essentially, he's always having on and off seasons, but when he's had this period, like, there is no doubt, especially exploiting
when
spaces
he's on,
behind,
he's very on.
Behind defences, like, the amount... He's 1 goal away from scoring 30 against the Premier League's Big Six. Like,
mad.
Like, that is insane. Do you know how many Manchester United players can chat to him on that level in Sir Alex's teams? Never mind this absolute shit show of 10 years. And this isn't my point, isn't defending any of his actions or anything that's gone wrong. But with my point of view is, people need to start having an honest angle of it. So, like, you've got to look at it like this. Like, even the number of goals that he's already scored in this period, people hate the context. They'll be like, yeah, but that average is like so-and-so goals a season. That's not really impressive. But then look at the context of what it is. And that's what I'm talking about. Radamel Falcao, all of these players that have come in, big names, Alexis Sanchez, Di Maria, like
Lukaku.
Paul Pogba, Lukaku. Like a lot of the time we sign certain types of players where the foundations need to be built and they're not built. So when a other big European team looks at that and says, we're a winning team right now, we're always in the Champions League every season, we get this guy, play him on the last man, and last shoulder, one of the most dangerous players in that scenario, you think that they won't be able, do you think that they won't spend 80 to 100 mil?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Answer me in the comments. Yes or no. You think with those reasonings that they wouldn't spend, whether you like him or not, yes or no, you think teams won't look at that and say, we will spend 80 to 100 mil on that. And this is what I'm saying. Like, you can have your opinion on him, but don't try downplay like any sort of like achievement that he might have had or like certain records that he might have hit in this period. Like, this is what I'm saying.
I completely agree. I agree.
I think people need to have more of a balanced point of view. And the reason I'm coming from that side of it is because everyone's coming from the other side where it's like we're seeing with the rampage on social media and there's no balance to it.
Yeah, he's shit, sack him off. It needs to be more than that. He's a better player than that. He's done more than that for United. I completely agree.
If you're going to sell him, you can get value from him. That's my point. So don't say it's not impossible.
Let's move on. I completely agree. And I do think there's a lot of people who just don't like him. And also, he's finally given them something to not like, which I would say. And now they're using that as proof that they've been right for the last 7 years. Let's move on to Jared Branthwaite. Here we go. We've got the brackets again. When the brackets come in, you know, first of all, it's Ollie. And second of all, we're struggling. So here we go. Branth, no time to wait. You know what? It's not your worst use of brackets, that. It's not great, but it's not your worst use of brackets. I don't mind that. United are pushing to sign Jared Branthwaite before the January transfer window closes for business. United are believed to have a long-term interest in Branthwaite, who has made a strong impression for Everton during the 23-24 campaign. Eric Ten Hag's side are attempting to sign the Englishman before the January transfer window closes for business on Thursday night. Now that is 24 hours and 27 minutes. Now, I would be stunned if we can get that sorted in that amount of time, but I'll read on. Everton, due to their financial problems, have signalled that they would be willing to let Branthwaite leave for 40 million plus bonuses. Ten Hag is said to be an admirer of the defender and is actively pushing for a deal to be completed before the end of the winter market. That's according to Corriere dello Sport, Italian outlet, I believe. Not sure what angle they have on this. That's usually you think, okay, that's an outlet from the country that the player's from or that this club is from. I don't know how they've got the big scoop on this, but apparently they have. I can't imagine 40 million ain't happening in January, is it? No chance.
It's the fact that they've got the scoop on it.
Like, I love that. How's that happened? No idea. United are not paying 40 million quid in the next 24 hours for anything, are they?
They haven't got 40 million quid to any.
No.
Like we discussed with the FFP thing, they are not in a position. Because if we had money to spend right now, you could potentially say you had 30, 40 million to spend.
Yeah.
We've heard that Callum Wilson could be potentially available for 16, 17 million.
Yeah.
And you want a backup striker or sort of an experienced striker.
That makes more sense.
So I'm not saying that's a deal we should make, but I'm saying if the money was available, that's potentially the kind of deal that we would make because Anthony Martial's basically going to be out for the rest of the season, like 10 odd weeks. So that would have made more sense, for example, as a link. So right now, I think with Lisandro Martinez coming back, basically almost having the full defence set. Varane was potentially leaving in January. Didn't happen. It doesn't make any sense you're going to bring a centre back. Now, this is one that I genuinely think could happen.
Well, this is the thing. I almost think they've done this thing where they've added this line about it could even happen the January transfer window closes before Thursday. I think they've added that line in to give this an urgency so United fans read it now. Yeah. I think if you take that line out and replace it with United think a deal could be done in the summer, then it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But for now,
we know that there's definitely
no time to wait.
Yeah, no time to wait. Is he playing tomorrow night? On my booking, or like is he played?
I'm not sure. What is he played now?
There's a load of games tonight. Oh no, they played
Everton
yesterday.
drew 0-0 yesterday. There we go. Right, so not happening in January.
Yeah, that is not happening.
Not happening. Right, let's move on. Giorgio Scalvini. Oh wait, sorry, Takefusa Kubo. More like not fucking Giorgio Scalvini. Get to him in a minute. Right, what we got here? Well, we'll take Fusa Kubo. That's better because take. That's good. We like that. Again, don't overdo the brackets. Like, oh, we've got some brackets. Let's use them every time. I don't mind this, But let's just be careful brackets-wise. Right, let's get into this. Real Sociedad attacker Takefusa Kubo is reportedly attracting interest from Manchester United. United are eyeing a move for the 22-year-old who joined the Basque club from Real Madrid. Kubo has scored 9 goals and provided as many assists after costing just $5.5 million. Why can't United make signings like that? Any move out of Sociedad could see the club land a hefty profit, I think it should say there. But with the increasing interest in midfielder Martin Zubimendi, including Arsenal, it has been claimed it is likely they will look to avoid a mass exodus. He's someone that's been very good this season. I think he won
I've watched
La Liga
one
Player of the
game
Month. I haven't seen much of him at all. I've seen stats. I've seen a couple of highlights of him.
Good,
Looks very talented player. What do you make of this?
I think him as a player, like I said, I've not watched insane amounts of him. Over the years, actually, over the last couple of years, I've probably watched more of him, even more so over those last couple of years than I have this season. And I believe like he is someone who's quite exciting on the right. Again, left-footed, like drives on the inside. Like I've seen, I think it was the game against Real Madrid. Might have been the one that I watched, which is weird because he's on loan from there. Pretty sure it was Real Madrid. I might be chatting shit, but I did watch him this season, and he looked really exciting.
I didn't know that he scored 9
goals.
They signed him this season.
So they've officially signed him.
Yeah, he was on loan before.
So it must have been that game. I think it was the Bernabeu. He was good that day. Looked quite impressive, but overall, to be fair, I didn't know that he even had 9 goals this season. So from an end product point of view, that is pretty good because sometimes, like I said, previous to this season when I've watched him, it felt like a lot of the time, exciting player takes his man on. Yeah. But where's the end product side?
We've been linked with a few players that you could say that about.
Yeah.
Like I think Elise, I know obviously gets a decent number of assists, but you look at his numbers and you think, oh, he's not like a 10 goals, 10 assists.
It's interesting because that's where the context comes in because it's the Crystal Palace thing, it's how deep they play, things like that. But when you bring up Elise and you compare it to Elise, which deal would you rather spend the money on? Because I don't know if it's mentioned here, but obviously like Real Madrid have a big fee that they would make out of that transfer. Okay. I'm pretty sure. I read into this transfer yesterday, and that's going to impact the fee a lot. So I'd expect Real Sociedad to ask for a much bigger fee than you'd expect for him. So I think Elise would make more sense. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah,
drop in the comments if it's between them two, who would you go for?
Yeah, some people saying Elise is injury prone. Kubo over Elise. Elise is more of a passer. People saying disciplined, talented. Like it's a good player, but who knows? Whether it's going to make it.
The other interesting factor for me is I'm not saying that the same players, and maybe someone that's watched more of Kubo than me can mention this, but I look at Ahmad, and there is a lot of parts of his game. Now, I'm not saying they're the exact same players, but in the areas and the zones that I've seen them playing, from what I've watched off Kubo, potentially the same. And I feel personally when I watched that Forest game when Ahmad had come off the bench, I seen a player that was providing solutions when Manchester United couldn't get in the box and they were getting trapped on that right hand side with Anthony in the first half. He was getting into the area, he was combining with play. He looked really good. Should Manchester United just invest time into levelling Ahmad up?
I hope so.
If they're going to sell Anthony and Sancho, bring in this. But should that? I'm not saying don't sign a right winger, but I'm saying should that be something we do if we're going for similar level potential a few years ago that you would put him up against some of these players, and Manchester United aren't even putting enough of an effort because it was so weird with Ahmad. We've seen that game against Forest, and unless I'm wrong, I felt like he really did change the game against Forest. Obviously,
I thought it looked really good.
It was quite frustrating when he pulls it back to Bruno and he sort of lets it go and stuff. But it's just one of them things. Is Manchester United still need to make an effort to sort of get players like Ahmad to a certain level, as well as if they're going to sell Anthony and Sancho, then obviously they're going to look at them players as well. Absolutely.
Let's move on then. Giorgio Scalvini is the next one. A real scalp indeedy. Right. Okay. We've got a special guest in today, and it started off so well, didn't it?
You're just doing too much.
What's this now? You're trying too much.
You tried too hard.
You tried too hard. Yeah. A real scalp indeedy.
Yeah.
Scalvini, scalp indeedy. I get where you're coming from, but come on.
There isn't. I'll give him that. There isn't many options.
But
if this was my job, I would struggle.
Yeah, would you? Yeah. Are you not the punning type?
Yeah, I'm not great.
No, don't say it's a hard. You don't get to say it's a hard job from off camera.
But
someone said, yeah, that one's no good.
I think
Daniel Berry likes it.
you should use ChatGPT, mate.
No? Yeah, don't use ChatGPT.
Maybe they use that.
If we start getting a whiff of a ChatGPT pun in here, then hell will break loose, let me tell you that much.
Do it. You're not doing a university dissertation.
Let's get into this story. Manchester United are interested in a 20-year-old Atalanta defender, Giorgio Scalvini. United are the greatest danger, which is a strange phrase, but it sounds like maybe it's a translation of a phrase that, as they look to bolster their defensive ranks. Bayern, PSG and Atletico Madrid have reportedly explored a move for the centre-back, but United pose the biggest threat. Scalvini extended his contract until 2028. Wow, okay, so he's still got 4 years left on it. And he wants to show the commitment is warranted. I want to demonstrate on the pitch that this renewal is deserved, he said. Initial reports suggest that Atalanta want €50 million for his services. But with the extension and his form, that has been suggested that it is approaching around €60 million. I don't know too much about him. Obviously, another young defender. He's someone that 20 years old. United, I don't know, clearly after a centre-back, which seems to be the case. Do you like him? Do you know much about him?
I've not watched enough of him.
No.
Like, genuinely, the only thing I've watched is like just highlights.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sat there and watched an Atalanta game. They are a team that I've watched over the years in Serie A, but not bothered with so much this season. But I mean, with the level of interest, if they're saying it is from Bayern, PSG, Atletico, there's obviously something in Scalvini. Again, it matches the age group that we're sort of targeting.
Yeah.
In terms of like, there's a lot of young up-and-coming centre-backs. Obviously, you've got him, you've got Branthwaite, Inacio from Sporting. I'm not sure how old he is. Diomande from Sporting.
Sorry. Feels like we're seeing a new generation of centre-backs tonight.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, I think we've gone, the final sort of, I know Ramos and there's certain people, he's good on the ball, I'm not saying he's not, but the Chiellinis of this world, the Ramoses of this world, the sort of slightly before him, the Vincent Kompanies and players like that, where what would be considered an old school centre-back a bit more, we are now seeing young players who, since they were kids, have been playing in defence or whatever, and have been looking at other players who like passing the ball around and centre-backs with an emphasis on the modern style that have been knocking about since he was learning to play football. Yeah. And I think we're seeing a rapid new generation of centre-backs come through, and you're seeing a lot of these players like Fofana, one of them, for instance, who 80 million quid to Chelsea at the age of 22, I think he was. Like, these players like him who are meant to be different, and they're very, very young. In my head, centre-backs, they don't come through at the top until they're 23, 24, 25. Yeah. But we're seeing it like almost 3 or 4 years earlier than that with this new sort of play style, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. I think from my point of view, it is an area like I've been looking at this season a lot, you know, that in terms of the young centre-backs that are coming through in Europe and hoping that Manchester United make the right move. Like I said, I've not really watched Scalvini myself, but the guys that I've kept an eye on over the last couple of seasons in SGR at Sporting, quite impressed with him, watching him I think a couple of times as well for Portugal over the last few months. Very impressed, really good in the air.
Yeah.
Was it against Arsenal? There's a couple of European games that I watched off him last season when they were in the Champions League, then into the Europa League. Really good on the ball, left-footed, which is the interesting factor because of Lisandro Martinez.
Yeah.
But I believe, which is a bit of an odd one, but I think what happens with Eric is quite interesting because if a manager steps in, I can see someone like Lisandro potentially playing at left-back or in midfield as well as his position at centre-back.
Yeah.
I think there's more to his game that can be exploited, especially with the way teams are trying to play now with centre-backs covering the full-back position, and I think his ability in terms of being able to play out of pressure in certain areas and hit passes over the top and play passes between the line. So could you bring in, for me personally, in Ashiao, if you are bringing in that centre-back?
Yeah.
By the sounds of it, we could potentially target 2 young centre-backs.
Yeah,
I remember Fabrizio mentioned this a few months ago. I've like seen a few things like where a few insider people have mentioned it and things like that around Manchester United, and I think it does make sense to sort of have that overhaul in defence. Does Varane move in the summer? Maguire move, and then they bring in like
a couple of youngsters.
Branthwaite for me makes a lot of sense because Branthwaite is a pure defender as well as being good on the ball. We've seen this season, but he is that player that can handle the Premier League in a way, and we've seen how he's done this season, and could be maybe the like for Maguire in a way, and hopefully that works out better than it's done with Maguire. But Yeah, I think I can potentially. I could really see us. I could see two of Maguire, Lindelof, and Varane going.
Yeah.
Like one or Varane going. I think two of those three, I reckon could potentially leave in the summer, and we try and bring in 2 young centre backs. So yeah, overall the young centre back market, like you said, it's like we're heading into a new.
Even players like Van de Ven at Tottenham.
Van de Ven.
Really
That's been a great signing. Genuinely didn't know anything about him until he'd moved to Spurs and been really impressed. Another one, Tapsoba, is it?
Yeah,
Tapsoba. Like at Leverkusen, pretty impressive. I think he's been around now for a couple of seasons now. So yeah, there is actually a big. There's another guy, I genuinely forgot his name, but he had a really good game the other day in the French league. I watched his only 18. Okay. I think Real Madrid and Manchester United target him. His name slipped my mind. I think he might be at Lille.
Yeah.
He's another one. Tadibo. I'm a big fan of. So there is a big list.
It's clear United are after a centre back or two.
Definitely. But like these are the names in general for a lot of teams that have been like looking for transfers.
Yeah.
So there is a bunch. So people let us know in the comments like who were the two you decided, because there is a big pool of young centre backs out there.
Absolutely. Here's an interesting little thing for you. Amrabat got sent off twice.
I watched that.
Amrabat's
so funny.
Amrabat, more like, eh? Not bad. Slightly unfair to him. Slightly rude. But maybe I suppose if you get a straight red, you're a little bit of a prat, aren't you? Right, Sofiane Amrabat was sent off twice during Morocco's shock AFCON loss to South Africa. With Morocco 1-0 down in the 94th minute, the night went from bad to worse after Amrabat was sent off for a second time, following a reckless challenge made as the last defender for Morocco. The referee was quick to award a second yellow, so he's already on a yellow. Then he gets his second yellow, which means he's been sent off. Then, forget this, as he's walking down the tunnel, the ref goes, actually, one sec, I've looked at this, if we change camera at some point. Actually, one sec, I've looked at this. It's not a second yellow, it's a red. But why? He brought him back.
The funniest thing is, I was watching this last night, and I'm pretty sure a few people like around me looking around, like I think I heard someone behind me saying it where I was watching it, and he said, "Oh yeah, he's coming back. He's
rescinded it."
No, I'm like, no, he's coming back to send him off because it's the last man. They've just reviewed it. It makes no sense. It's like he almost comes back with some sort of hope.
Yeah.
And then he just goes, no.
It's even worse.
It's even worse.
It's been a pretty disastrous AFCON for United players, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And to be fair though to him, like I was watching that game, like obviously Hakimi misses the penalty. Yeah. They try really go for it in the last few minutes to come back. Throw everyone further up the pitch. He's the last man. He's chasing the last guy down. He ends up conceding the free kick, which South Africa ultimately finished the game off with a great free kick. Gets sent off. Pretty sad ending for him and Morocco. Which is quite interesting. AFCON. We mentioned it as well before the show started, and a lot of the favourites are out of the tournament, which is quite interesting because I would have thought Morocco would have won it this year.
They were the big favourites, weren't they? Right, that's going to be all from us. Thank you very much, Abdul. It's been excellent. Lovely chatting to you. You're going to be with us tomorrow for the watch along as well. Yeah. You'll be over in Stat Corner, dishing out the detail as United face Wolves. It's going to be me, Adam McCullough and Jay as well, so make sure you stick around and stay tuned for that. Let us know your thoughts on all the stories today. Hit subscribe to the channel as well, and we'll see you in a bit.